Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And welcome to this webinar or workshop that is on a new topic for us. I've been wanting to introduce this for a long time, and finally I found the opportunity. So my name's Sarah McCrum, for those of you who don't know me. I'm going to be introducing in a moment my sister, Catherine McCrum, who's going to be leading this workshop. But I thought I'd give you a little bit of context, first of all, and let you know what we're going to do today. And then I'm going to hand it over to Catherine. So what we're going to be looking at today is an approach or a way of working with your physical movement, but that's deeply connected with your awareness. And I've been wanting to introduce it because I think that it's very suitable for our community. It's very suitable for people who are highly sensitive, highly intuitive, highly energetically sensitive, which pretty much everybody here is, as I found. And I think that it can help all of us find a different way with our own body and with our physical ease, our movement, our balance, our coordination. It's amazing for dealing with tension, pain, injuries. And I've seen that. I've seen that in my husband, Nico, who has really managed what was a very dysfunctional back, often with extreme back pain, for probably 10 years now, just because of some of these things that my sister Catherine has taught him. And anytime his back begins to feel a little bit weak, he's right down on the floor straight away doing his Feldenfit exercises. And he's just managed it incredibly well as a result. So that's something that I've seen has been very important for us at home. So I don't think there's much more that I need to say about that. What I'd like to do is introduce Catherine and ask her just to tell you a little bit about who she is and how she got to here. And then we'll start talking about what we're going to be doing today. So Catherine, welcome. And it's nice to have you here in this community.
Get myself unmuted. Thanks, Sarah. And hi, everybody. It's really great to be here. As Sarah has said, we've been thinking about doing something together for a long time. And it's taken quite a while to get there. So I'm really delighted to be here tonight and to see so many of you turned up from all over the world, different time zones and everything. So Sarah's given a great introduction to what Feldenkrais or Feldenfit is about, but I'll say a little bit more about myself and how I got to the point of being here tonight. I started in sport, fitness, and as a ski coach. And, fitness was a very, very big part of my life. And I was very interested in improving my performance. And I worked extremely hard to do that. I did a lot of Pilates, I did a lot of strength training, and every possible type of training that you could imagine, I probably did it. But the more training I did, unfortunately, the more injured I got and the worse my performance got. And in the sports that I loved. So then I came across Feldenkrais back in the 90s. And within a very short period of time of doing these lessons where you seek ease and quality in your movement rather than forcing corrections on yourself, forcing an idea of how you should move based on somebody else's expertise. You find your own pathway, if you like. My performance in my sports and the things that I love to do started to really improve quite dramatically. And at that point, I trained in the method. I trained in Amsterdam and I finished that training probably over 22 or 3 years ago. So I've been teaching Feldenkrais for a long time. And then when COVID came along, I suddenly had no clients. Maybe some of you had that experience of one day you were working and the next day you weren't able to work, particularly if you're client facing. And so I thought, well, how can I bring this work to people online? And that's how Feldenfit developed. And I wanted to bring these short, bite-sized Feldenkrais lessons to people who are stuck at home. And they're 5 to 10 minutes long. And they take the sort of essence of the method and compact it, if you like, with a particular focus of yeah, being able to fit it into your day, but also really sense some discernible differences in your everyday life and the ease with which you can do everything in your everyday life. So it doesn't matter if you're not a sports person or that's not your thing. Would you like to walk with more ease? Would you like your posture to be more upright without trying? Would you like to be able to sit at your desk and work without getting backache or neckache? All those things which, when they're trouble-free, you don't notice that they're missing, but the moment you start to get pain and discomfort and stress, it becomes unpleasant. So that is the aim of this type of short lessons that I've developed. And yeah, I'm hoping to present a little bit of that to you tonight. And also we can discuss and I can take questions and we can find out more about Feldenfit, which is the program I've developed, and about Feldenkrais if you want to know more. Um, what else, Sarah? Is there anything else you want to know about me? I'm also
No,
a psychotherapist.
I'd
I don't know
say
if it's, yeah, go on.
she's also a psychotherapist, a
I am also a
Gestalt.
psychotherapist, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Gestalt psychotherapist, which is very body-based type of psychotherapy. So the two fit very well. In some respects, um, Feldenkrais is a way of working with your whole self, but through movement. And Gestalt, of course, you use movement to get into contact with your emotional life and your psychological life as well. So, yeah.
And we work normally through energy to reach the same place. So that's why I
Yes.
thought it was really nice to bring in this like a different way in. Um, and I remember at the beginning of COVID having a conversation with you about it. You were thinking
Mm,
about, should I do this?
mm,
And one of the things I just want to say is not meaning to be disrespectful to other Feldenkrais, but I have, Catherine used to give me recordings sometimes of other teachers doing Feldenkrais, and they were like 1.5 hour sessions. And I was, you're lying on the floor all the time, and then you fall asleep, and then you feel guilty about falling asleep. And when she brought in this Feldenfit with these very short lessons that go straight to the essence, and in 5 to 10 minutes, you actually feel the difference. I think I just think that was such a great move that you
mm,
did that. And it's
mm.
been very, very popular. She's done a lot of work with riders, horse
Yes.
riders, and it's been incredibly popular because, of
Mm,
course, horse riders are very much interested in how they move and how they sit and
mm,
how all their joints and different parts kind of coordinate with each other and with their horse.
mm.
So, yeah, I think, Catherine, let's just start straight in. Or I'll just explain what we're going to do. So Catherine's going to talk a little bit about Feldenfit and the principles here. She's going to do a demonstration exercise that we can all participate in. And don't worry, it's informal. And if you're not quite in the right circumstances, you can either watch or adapt it as best you can. But for those of us who have a bit of floor space, we're going to be on the floor in a little while.
Mm.
We are going to be running a Feldenfit course starting on the 1st of January, a kind of like, let's have a body that's suitable for 2025, not suitable for 1995 kind of thing. Let's actually move into the new world. I think 2025 for me is a big year where the change is now underway. The transition is underway. We're not anticipating anymore. We're not wondering what's going to happen. The world is changing very, very fast. And it's a very good time to make sure that all the different parts of us, physically, emotionally, energetically, our subtle senses, our subtle navigation systems, all of these things are working as well as possible, because we're going to need them. And people who have these things in place are going to be the people who are able to lead and stabilize other people in probably some turbulent times. So, oh, hello, Cat. Your cat's just shown up in the
The cat, yeah.
picture.
The cat is the ultimate Feldenfit model.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to do the lessons, but models beautiful, functional, coordinated, elegant, and graceful movement. So I'm not
Okay,
surprised
Catherine.
he's made an appearance.
I'm going to hand it over to you. Um,
Yes. I'm
yeah.
going to say a little bit about the principles before we actually get down on the floor and do a Feldenfit lesson. But I won't say too much because, in a sense, the lesson itself embodies the principles. And I'm hoping that through my directions, you will get a feel of how the principles that we employ in this particular methodology is different from how you would normally exercise. But on that note, I come from a background of health and fitness and sport and fitness training and personal training. And one of the key differences is that with Feldenkrais, you are looking to find a quality and ease in your movement, where you're always working within a range where your movement feels effortless. In other words, you're not looking to contract muscles in a forceful sort of way to achieve a particular action. So that really takes it away from a lot of the sort of fitness methods, because ultimately we are very far away from the idea that if you have weak muscles, you need to strengthen them, and if you have strong muscles or tight muscles, you need to stretch them. In fact, what we say in Feldenkrais is that you need to actually reorganize your movement and relearn how you organize your movement so that you can coordinate your movement better. And then your muscles, your tight muscles, will no longer get in the way. So that's the first thing, is that I'm not expecting you to want to strengthen your muscles or stretch your muscles. And if you feel your muscles stretching during the session, then you need to retreat and actually do a little bit less, which brings us into a second really key principle, which is less is more. So anytime that you feel that you're pushing, just tell yourself to back off, do less, take a rest, pause, breathe. And I will cue you into those moments as best as I can, but you don't need to wait for me to tell you to rest. So if you want to rest, you want to break, you take your own breaks, you're in charge of your own, the way that you do and you approach the lesson. The other thing, which is an interesting principle, is that most people will feel that they are in some way asymmetrical. And the lesson tonight will really play on our asymmetries. But how we look at it is that it's just that you organize yourself differently from one side to the other. And if you try to make yourself the same between your two sides, you will almost inevitably go into that kind of slightly perfectionist mindset in which you overwork your muscles or you stretch and you pull yourself around. And often you don't really get change from that or no lasting change. So in tonight's session, I thought we'd play around with a lesson which really goes into asymmetry and is quite one-sided, because I'd like you to feel some differences between what happens when you work mostly with one side and not an awful lot with the other. Will you get a change in the second side, even though you're not going to do much with it? Or will you be left feeling like, I don't know, a Picasso painting? So there's a little bit of a challenge. Some of you will probably go, oh my God, I just feel so terrible. I really, really want to get my other side equal. And others will probably really enjoy the experience. But we can talk about that afterwards. We will do a little bit on the second side just to, it's really so that your brain and your nervous system starts to organize the second side. But you don't have to do each thing equally on both sides in order to feel differences on both sides. And I think that's really enough in terms of principles, because I think for me, the proof is in the pudding. So if we could, if you could organize your space so that you can find a space that you can lie down on your back with hopefully with your knees bent and your feet standing at least. If you can have your legs long as well, that's great. If you can't lie on your back, you can modify the session and do it on a chair. But it's best if the chair has got a reasonably firm surface and isn't too low. So I will give you some time to get yourselves organized. And thank you, people who I can see. That's really helpful. Oh, and I think
feel free to go on. Oh, I was just saying, do feel free to go on video. Don't be shy.
Oh yeah, don't
We're just
do
all a
leave your
bunch
videos
of
on if
people here with
you're comfortable with that.
body.
Yeah.
I'm just getting myself organized as well.
So whatever your situation, if you're sitting or if you're lying, take a moment to check in with yourself. And if you're lying on the floor, the back of you will no doubt be in contact with the surface you're lying on, with your mat or your carpet. And if you're sitting on a chair, your points of contact will be your sitting bones and your feet. And as you lie or sit, sense the weight on your pelvis. So if you imagine that you could divide your pelvis into two halves. You have a right side and a left side. And sense whether one side of your pelvis feels heavier than the other. If you're sitting, then you may feel that one sitting bone presses more into the floor or into the chair. Notice also if you can feel this differential between the weight of the right side of your pelvis and the left. Does the texture of your pelvis feel different on one side to the other? Sometimes you'll feel like you have, stronger, more tense muscles on one side, and the other side might feel kind of soft and more puddled out or molded into the floor. And then in your mind's eye, you can certainly do all this session with your eyes closed, if that helps you feel more internally or on a sensory level. But track up and feel the space between your lower back and the floor. And for most people, there will be some space. There will be a little arch in your lower back. And notice, is that space larger on one side than the other? If you like, you can slide a hand underneath the space between your lower back and the floor and feel it out for yourself. And then the next part of you that's likely to be in contact is some part of the back of your chest. And if you're sitting, you might have to kind of fill in a floor that's behind you that your chest could be supported by. And sense, do you feel more of one side of the back of your chest than the other? Sometimes you might even feel a bit more rolled towards one side of your chest, and one shoulder might be more fully on the floor. If you're sitting, you might feel your chest is a little bit turned to the left or to the right. And then one more place, a sort of reference, if you like, that we can come back to at the end, is the contact on the back of your head. And is the contact on the back of your head in the middle of your head? Or is your head already a little bit rolled to one direction or to the other? If you took where your gaze was directed towards the ceiling or in front of you, do you have a sense of whether your eyes are turned to the left, to the right? And then bend your knees if they're not bent already, and bring your feet to standing. And have a reasonable space between your feet, so your feet are around shoulder width apart, so wider than your pelvis. And with the help of your right foot, so you can push a little bit with your right foot, could you start to lift the right side of your pelvis a little bit away from the floor and roll a little bit to the left? If you're sitting, you would just lift your right sitting bone and come more onto your left sitting bone. And then you return and you find a range, as I said in the introduction, where this feels completely easy. And sometimes you'll find ease by moving where your supporting foot is. You could find that if you move it closer to you or more to the right, or play around a bit with where your foot is that you're pushing with. But you push with your right foot, and that you transmit some force from the floor through your foot, through your leg, so that you lift your right hip and the right hip joint away from the floor, and you roll a little bit to the left. And then you come back down to the middle and return your pelvis. And once you've done that a few times, compare and contrast that with the other side. So organize your left foot somewhere that feels supportive and stable, a place that you can push the floor with. And when you push down, in order to push or in order to lift something up, something else has to push down. That's what a lever is. So you push with your left foot, and you find this way that you can direct the forces of the push in such a way that the left side of your pelvis lifts and you roll a little bit to the right. And many of you may already notice that you have a difference between the ease with which you lift your right hip and the ease with which you left. If you go fast, it'll be really difficult to tell differences. So slow it down. And then I'm going to add a constraint. The constraint is you are not allowed to tilt your knees to the right and to the left. So in other words, your knees are going to stay facing the ceiling, and you have to find a way to lift the one side of your pelvis without your knees dropping over. Good. And then rest a moment with your legs bent. Lengthen your left leg and keep your right leg bent and your right foot standing. If you're sitting, you don't have to worry about that bit. Interlace your hands behind your head and have your elbows wide so that the elbows and the upper arms and the forearms are more or less touching the floor within what's reasonable for you and your shoulder flexibility. And start to slide your right elbow downwards on the floor as if you wanted to take it in the direction of your right foot. If you're sitting, you'll be taking your right elbow down towards the floor on the right. And this is a movement of your head, because your head will be carried by your hands, your arms, your shoulders, and your chest, and you will be side bending to the right. Bending your spine to the right, and your chest will bend. How do you breathe as you bend your elbow down to the right towards your right foot and then come back to the middle? Do you tend to breathe in? Do you tend to breathe out? Does it make a difference which way you breathe? Can you sense that as you bend yourself to the right, one side of you gets shorter between your right shoulder and your right hip, and the other side gets longer? The next time that you're back to the middle, pause a moment and return to the movement of pushing with your right foot in such a way that you lift the right side of your pelvis a little bit and you roll across the back of your pelvis so that your weight comes onto the left side of you. And see, can you organize this so that your right knee does not tilt over? It stays directed to the ceiling. It will kind of lengthen and extend away from you, but it doesn't drop. So you lift and lower the right side of your pelvis with the help of the foot and this miraculous physical principle where whatever you push down lightens something else somewhere else. And now as you push with your foot, could you side bend by taking your elbow down towards your right foot? So as you push with the right foot and the right hip lifts, could you take your right elbow downwards? And as you return the right side of your pelvis, could you bring your head, your shoulders, and everything back to the middle? So now you're not only bending your chest to the right, you're side bending through your whole spine, almost making a C-shaped curve from your tailbone through the length of your spine, through between the shoulder blades, all the way through to the crown of your head, makes a C shape. And the belly of the C is kind of around your waist or your lower ribs. And the whole of your left side gets long. The next time that you come back to the middle, let your arms come back down by your sides and return to where you started. So if you had your legs long at the start of the session, lengthen them. If you had your legs bent, you can bend them. And observe, how is the weight on the back of your pelvis now? You've done one side. Do you feel more even or more asymmetrical? And what about the space between your lower back and the floor? Under the left side of your lower back and the right side of your lower back? Has that changed? We've done a lot of shortening the right ribs, the right side of the ribs. Do they feel short as you lie there? Do they feel shorter than the ribs you've been lengthening? And what about the contact on the back of your head? Has that changed? Roll your head a little to the right and a little to the left, just an easy, small range of motion. You're rolling the point of contact across the back of your head. Feel which direction your head rolls more easily. And then we will do just 30 seconds or so on the other side. So keep your left leg bent, lengthen your right leg, and pick whichever of those movements you would like to explore on this side. So you could merely do the push with the left foot and the lifting of the left hip joint to roll across. Or you could do the side bending movement with both your hands behind your head and bending your elbow down towards your left foot. You could do the combination. You could push with your left foot, lift your left hip joint and side bend with the elbow, with your head, with your chest. But do it really small because you haven't done much on this side. You want to kind of come into it, not cautiously, but with consideration that you haven't oiled this side quite as much as you have the other. And one way to tell whether you're working a bit too hard is if you find there are moments where you interrupt your breath, then just back off a little bit, do a little bit less. You can even imagine it. We know that imagining movement can actually change the neuromuscular signals. And you can improve your coordination just through imagination. And then come back to the middle. Let your arms rest by your sides, or if you're sitting, you let them rest on your legs, and sense and observe the quality of the contact of the back of yourself on the floor now, or the quality of the contact of your sitting bones on the chair. And it could be nice to walk around a little bit, to roll to your side, come up to sitting and standing in your own time, walk around, take the movement into a function that you do in daily life. And then in your own time, you could come back to the Zoom meeting. Sometimes you'll notice when you stand that you feel like your posture is a little bit different. You feel a little bit of a change in the length of your spine or how you weight your feet, your connection to the ground. You might feel that your hips feel a bit freer as you walk. Sometimes you might feel that your feet are softer, more panther-like. I was thinking, Sarah, it would be nice maybe to um, open up the floor to anybody who wants to talk about what they experienced or ask questions. And you can either do that in the chat if you like, or you can, of course, speak. So it's up to you entirely how you'd like
Yeah, that's
to,
cool.
yeah, yeah,
If you have a question or something you want, if you want to just like what I suggest is
yeah.
encourage everybody to just share a little in the
Mm,
chat, something that you noticed, something that surprised you, something
mm,
that felt like it was new or valuable for you.
mm.
And then if there's something like you'd like to share out loud, or if there's a question that you have for Catherine, either put it in the chat or just raise your hand. There's a raise hand, should be a raise hand
Oh,
icon
yes,
at the
Monica.
bottom of
Yeah.
your screen. Okay. So let's go to Monica.
Hi.
Sorry, I am. Yes, I am off. Good morning, Catherine. Lovely to meet you.
Hi. Hi,
Um,
Monica. Hi.
uh, I'm just you mentioned at the beginning about the stretching or
Mm,
the activity of weightlifting.
mm,
As a person over 60, we're strongly encouraged to do
mm,
weightlifting, and I'd really love your thoughts there because I have that real tug of should I, and I only do that twice a week because that's what I've
mm,
been encouraged to only do it and 72 hours apart.
mm,
So, but I've always felt fantastic with Feldenkrais. So I'd
mm.
love your thoughts.
I actually really agree with that. I also do weight training, either weight training with actual weights or with my own body weight. It's really, really important. But I think what Feldenkrais can do is it can lay the foundations so that you can actually do your strength work effectively, safely. And so often what happens if people don't do this type of reorganization work, I mean, it would be lovely, wouldn't it, if we moved as we did when we were kids, you know? Nobody has to do Feldenkrais when they're little because most kids really are able to move very freely and easily. But that's not the case. We carry our history with us. And then if you're carrying your history and then you're strength training, you're often strengthening the history of your muscular contractions. So what I would say is that Feldenkrais gives you the foundations to move with as much, really to move as optimally as you possibly can, so that that type of work can really be of the most benefit possible. Totally agree. I myself do that. So yeah. I
Okay.
hope that helps.
So just to add to that, then you're talking about that history.
Mm,
Regardless of age, you're suggesting that Feldenkrais can sort of uncrack, or actually, that's
mm.
probably not the right word for
I don't know, it
Feldenkrais,
is. I think it is
but
in a way. Is it uncrackle and
able
unpop?
to, yeah, okay, that history.
Yes,
Great.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And most of us will have had injuries of some sort. They may be just like chronic stress type of injuries or actual physical injuries. You might have had some surgeries. The other thing, of course, that we carry is, I can think when I was at school, when I was about 15, it always comes to me because it changed so much through the Feldenkrais. I went to a boys' school, an all boys school, and I can remember walking around like this with my sternum down for 2 years. And then, keeping my arms crossed. And of course, that has an impact on not only my posture, but every aspect of how I moved. So the Feldenkrais, when I went to do the training and I was able to disentangle myself from something that I needed to do then that I no longer need to do now in my present. That was very relieving, as well as freeing up and releasing how I moved to a great degree.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. There's some other.
Dan.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm 71 years old. And
Hello.
yeah, hi. I Cass. I mean, it was really great meeting you and listening to this. I've never heard of this process before, but I know movement is so key. I was born with spina bifida,
Mm,
a terrible posture. I was an all-around gymnast, so I was always crunched in sort of in the front with my chest. I was very strong.
mm,
But then I had cancer in 1980. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. They radiated my neck, and it really affected my muscles in my neck, and I started with pronation, my head leaning forward and hips out. And I was very, I always worked out, always exercised. So, and the doctor said I'd end up in a wheelchair in my early adult life, but that hasn't been the case. I'm moving around really well. But the bottom line is movement. It's so key. Whatever it is, I know that from experience. And everything in my life that I'm doing, um, the movement and the ease of mobility is allowing me to do so many other things in my life that I've wanted to do for a long time and that I've built over time through experience, through effort and determination and everything to get things done. So I was so curious to hear what you had to offer. And I just want to say from my own experience and to everyone, movement is so key. And whatever you want to call it, whatever way you want to teach it or instruct it, I mean, it's done wonders for me over the decades.
Dan, I'm curious, how did you experience this little exercise?
This exercise, it's very subtle. I have a personal trainer that really is really tough on me. I have a lot of people tough on me, but I've gone through personal training for many, many years. And now I'm going through a specialized movement coach terms. He's trying to improve my posture to stack my bones in a way so that where I have weakness, we actually develop strength through the alignment of better posture in my, particularly in my neck and in my back, because I have so many things going on. But through the training and through the movement, and it's excruciating at times. I mean, I've screamed sometimes from it, but I tell you, I'd rather.
Dan, I just because we've got a lot of people here. I'm curious, just this particular what we did, that 5 minutes or so of what we did today, because it's very, very different from what you're talking about. It's almost the opposite of what you're talking about. I'm curious whether you noticed that.
It's very subtle, and I think that's probably one of the key things I need to sort of get.
I think so.
Yeah, the subtlety. I think that's so key and something that I need to key on and I need to focus on in my movement. So
I think it would be really supportive actually, because I think what you're describing, and your experience of the challenges you've had to, I'm going to say overcome in your life to be able to function as well as you do. I think this would just add to it. But I think what it might also do is give you a sense of how every part of you is related and connected to every other part of you. And that is often what is a little bit missing in fitness training. If you might find some difficulty in a particular movement, but you're not noticing that you're tensing your neck or you're holding your jaw. And I think what Feldenkrais does is through slowing down and focusing on quality, you start to notice the small things that you do that inhibit you to be able to do the things that you like with the quality that you desire. So I think that's what it might help you with. But yeah, time will tell. So we'll be curious to see what you make of it if you decide to do a bit more.
Yeah, it's an organizational issue.
We'll get to some. We'll get to other more hands. I've got so many pages of people here.
Well,
so
no, I've got a question here. So there's a question from Yolanda. For people who can't get on the floor, can you do the exercises on a bed?
Yes, you can. In fact, I have one of my students, my Feldenfit students, long-term Feldenfit student. She did 4 years doing these movements on her bed. Of course, you don't get quite the same feedback from your bed as them from a firm floor. The floor is a marvelous way to really feel forces, because when you push down through a firm floor, the forces go very directly through your bones and through your skeleton, and you can make the sort of skeletal connections a bit more easily. However, she did 4 years on the floor and has got to the point now where she was absolutely ecstatic because on the bed, because she's ecstatic. She can now get down on the floor. So brilliant. Yes, but the bed is fine.
Paul is asking, is Feldenkrais safe for mild scoliosis?
Yes. And the reason why is because you never push into trying to correct the scoliosis. Like today, that lesson where you're side bending the spine, And sometimes we might do that in a little bit of a twist as well. You'll find in one direction that plays to your scoliosis, and it's like really easy. It's like, oh, this is what my spine loves to do. But because I'm never directing people to try and find the same, exactly the same range of movement on the other side, just the quality and the ease, you will find that you can get more of an effortless sense of movement on both sides, because you're finding all the places that maybe you weren't able to access before, but never through force. Yeah. So
And Paul,
yeah, go on.
Her other question is, does it address foot problems, fallen arches, metatarsal foot pain, etc.?
Yeah. I'm not going to say that, you know, you would say you had really, really stretched out fascia in your feet, for instance, or tendons. I'm not going to say that it will completely restore it, but what it does do is give you a way to functionally restore your arch through an awareness of what a functioning arch feels like. Because this is so much about sensory awareness, as you probably, you know, could tell from the short section that we did, that a lot of it is about noticing, you know, what you're doing and how you're doing it, rather than just going through the motions of repeating exercises. Yeah. Actually, yeah, go on.
You say what you were going to say.
I was going to say that before I trained in Feldenkrais, I was a ski instructor and a ski coach, and I'm also a rider. And arches are so key to both riding and skiing, because if you don't know how to have an arch which is springy, it's very, very difficult to ride in harmony with your horse, but it's also very difficult to ski well. So yeah, it's a big thing for me, and we do a lot of foot stuff.
Rochelle is asking, can this help TMJ issues? That's jaw stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, so yes, there are quite a number of Feldenkrais lessons around TMJ. In the first Feldenfit program, I haven't got a direct TMJ lesson, but I do teach stuff for the jaw, for the tongue, for the organization of the neck, for how to find that kind of ease of movement in your skull, which can actually help your TMJ function more easily and with less discomfort. Yeah.
You know what I think I'm going to do, because there's some quite questions here, and I'd like to, I think there may be some more questions hovering, and I see some hands up. What I'd like to do is take just a little bit to talk about the course, then come back to the questions, and then if we need to go a little bit over the hour with questions, we can do so. But I know that sometimes people have to leave before the hour. So what I'd love you to talk a bit about, Catherine, is what's the experience? So I'll give you a little bit of information. We're running a 30-day course starting on the 1st of January. Actually, if you sign up for it, you can start right away. You can start with the exercises today, tomorrow, but it's kind of formally on the 1st of January from the point of view that Catherine will be in the community answering questions there, and you know the support will be there. And you're going to get a 5 to 10 minute exercise every day, different one every single day for those 30 days on video, really similar kind of style to what we did today. Can you talk a little bit, Catherine, because you've done this with lots and lots of people, like what's the experience like of doing this Feldenfit 30-day course?
I think the thing that people say most frequently is, I can't believe how different I feel from doing what seemingly felt so like I wasn't really doing anything at all. A little bit what Dan was saying, it's subtle compared to what we're used to. We're used to thinking that we need to force things in order to get improvement. So that's the first thing. And then I think the second thing is people discover ways of moving, which means they can do things they haven't been able to do for a very long time. So for instance, I remember someone saying, it sounds like a really little thing, but she was like down on the floor, saw something under her sofa, and was able to flatten herself out, get right under the sofa, grab it. And she was like, oh my God, I haven't been able to do that for ages. So I think it really improves your flexibility without ever really focusing on improving your flexibility. With the riders, they notice that their alignment really improves. They get a feeling of length through the spine without ever trying to kind of hold themselves more upright, which the horses love because horses really hate tense corrections and trying to sit when you try to sit right. They don't like it at all. They just feel it as stiffness. Our office chair doesn't know the difference, so it doesn't give you the same feedback as a horse. And so often, when people, actually often when people meet me, they go, "Oh, you teach movement. Oh, I must sit with better posture." But that is not that's something you can maintain for a matter of minutes at a time before like going, "Oh gosh, that's tiring." So it gives you a sense of that easy length through your spine. People generally say they feel more grounded, and that because they feel more grounded, their mood is better, they feel less anxious, their breathing improves. People find that they are more powerful, but they've never lifted a weight throughout the entirety of the 30 days. So they feel they're more able to do movements which look quite strong from the outside. Like, for instance, like these sort of yoga lunges type of thing. We do that in the last week of Feldenfit, but we do them in a way where I really break it down so you can find the way into these more physical strengthening type of movements, but without strain. And that's very surprising that someone who's always felt like they weren't very strong can feel strong. So that's it, I think.
What about, I'm thinking about, well, there's one question here, and people who are 50s, 60s, 70s, there are plenty of people in that range. Yeah. Some people start to feel stiff, some people start to feel pain in different areas, old injuries maybe resurface or have never really gone away, those kinds of things. What have you seen with that?
Well, generally, the stiffness and the discomfort that we feel in daily life is because we're holding ourselves in a particular way that we're not noticing that we're doing. So often the first step is you need to notice what you're doing before you can do what you want. And Feldenkrais is very much a process of understanding yourself to the small nuances, the small ways that you're holding yourself that fix you more than you need to. And in that moment that you feel how you're fixing yourself, you can unfix yourself, because it's generally that moment where you feel like, oh my God, I was clenching my right side of my jaw. Oh, I was hardening my eyes when I did that movement. And when I hardened my eyes, my head got really fixed. And then I couldn't move my pelvis easily. It's all those sorts of connections that are the things which tend to melt away discomfort, pain, stiffness. I'm not going to say that it's a miracle cure for injuries, but it sure helps with the rehabilitation. And that's one of my sort of specialist areas because I've worked so much with sports and fitness people. I've rehabbed quite a few people after surgeries and after sports injuries. And I would say that you do not need to be in great pain when you rehab. You do not. And if you are, you're probably going to inhibit your progress, is what I would say. Being a horse rider and a skier, I've broken bones, so I have done it both ways. And there is a way that you can recover function where you don't ever have to hurt.
That's good.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from everything you've talked about is that this is actually really valuable for people who do a lot of sport and exercise. It's also really valuable for people who maybe can barely get down on the floor or think, oh, I've not done anything for years, or they feel really limited in their body, because it's kind of like, it's more like whatever movement you do in your life, this supports it. So whatever you're doing, it supports you to move better as a human being. And therefore you don't need to think, do I do the right thing, or do I have the right clothes? This morning I was thinking, Catherine had asked me if I would demonstrate. I was thinking, I don't have any of those like proper clothes that people wear. It's like, no, you don't need to worry about that, Sarah. We don't need any of the proper stuff, because it's just coming from a completely different angle.
Yeah, and you're never, I for the purposes of the Feldenfit program, I do demonstrate because I made the videos, but the purpose is not for you to move like me. The purpose is for you to find your own optimal way of moving that absolutely suits you. So, you know, I think that's a really important distinction. Having been in the sport and fitness world before, where it was all about correcting people and people moving like me as a so-called model of good movement or whatever, it's completely different. The funny thing is, though, like with a lesson like we did tonight, which is, you know, like a side bending lesson, connecting the pelvis, connecting the head, you know, once you feel the ribs have got that more kind of springy ability to side bend, your pelvis will get free and your legs will get more agile. That's actually what happens when the ribs get free. Most people will do it completely differently at the start, but by the end of the session, most people will be moving the same, because actually there is an optimal way for humans to move in every single thing that we do. And we are, you know, obviously got different, you know, some people are smaller and some people are bigger, and we've got differences like that. But fundamentally, there is such a thing as optimal human movement. And you will find through these sessions that most people look pretty similar at the end of a lesson, which is always strikes me as very amazing, because I've taught people. I had a class once, and the oldest person in it was 85, and she had a bit of osteoporosis and was quite hunched over, and the youngest was 26 and like super fit. And by the end, the 26-year-old and the 85-year-old look remarkably similar.
That's an interesting one.
Mm.
Cool. Okay, so if you join the course, you get the videos.
Yes.
You get some introductory videos. There's one that shows you how to adapt it if you have any kind of physical limitations. So you get these 30 daily lessons. You get a community where Catherine's actually going to be there every day. So if you have questions, you can ask them. We're also running 2 live coaching sessions, so asking questions like we are here during the course. All of that, it costs $200 US dollars, or you can do 2 monthly payments of $110. I'll put the link in the chat for that. So there's a reasonable amount of information on the page. You can also always get in touch with me if you've got any questions. And I can always get in touch with Catherine if I can't answer your questions. Get her onto you. So it's a very simple experience, and it's very efficient, I think, because of this, you know, taking a little bit of time, not a lot of time.
Someone's asking if there
you
are
want to add about the course, and then we'll come back to.
Actually, this is about the course. Will there be demonstration videos accompanying the course? Yes. Every day I demonstrate the movements. Yes, with a short description.
So Catherine leads. She leads and demonstrates at the same time, and we have video and audio versions of every lesson.
Often people find once they've got the kind of feeling of how to do this particular way of working with yourself, they prefer to do it from the audio, because then you have your own experience and it's less distracting than, you know, seeing me and my cats, you know, which photobomb.
They wander in and out.
They wander in and out. And I like, you know, you can do the lessons with your eyes closed, you can do them with your eyes open. And you know, you may find that you've interpreted a particular direction in a different way than perhaps I meant. It doesn't really matter, because you're still exploring and discovering and making connections between the different parts of yourself and understanding the relationships and the linkages through yourself. And then you go, oh gosh, well, I've been doing something completely different, and you can try the other way. It's fine. So it's a very non-judgmental process, is really what I'm saying.
Thank you. So I'm going to send out the recording of this session later today, and I'm going to send out the link again with that. I'll put that in the chat again. Yes, if you have any questions, you can get in touch with us. You can sign up right away and start doing the exercises right away, as I said, and then we'll have a formal start on the 1st of January. That's when Catherine will be in the community. I think that the 2 coaching sessions are for us in Australia, the 14th and the 21st of January, so 2 weeks apart, kind of in the middle of the course. You've had a bit of time to get going, but you can always ask questions in the community before that. The community, my business has a community forum. It's a software called Circle. Actually, when you're in the course, if you're looking at one of the videos, there'll be a little dark blue circle at the bottom right of your screen. If you click it, you land in the community. Okay, so it's very simple. You can access the community directly from the course platform in a very, very straightforward way. Okay. I'm going to ask, so I'm going to say we're sort of done with the main session. If you need to drop off because it's coming to the end of the hour, then feel free to do so. And I'm also going to now pick up, because there's lots of really good questions here. And if you're willing, Catherine, we could stay a little bit longer and answer those questions.
Yeah, no problem at all. Actually, I was going to go to Nicholas first because I saw he had a question and he had his hand up for a long time.
Oh.
And it's
Are you
about
still
his...
here, Nicholas, or have you had to go?
No, I'm still here.
Okay,
Oh,
hi,
great.
Nicholas. I'll just read your question out if that's, shall I, Nicholas?
Sure.
Can my mother do this? She is recovering from knee replacement surgery. She's had both knees and one hip done too. She's got soft bone, doesn't walk often. She's wheelchair bound most of the time. It's a really good question. She'll be able to do some of it and not all of it, is what I would say. There are programs, Feldenkrais programs, which might be more suitable for her. I think particularly with the osteoporosis and the wheelchair situation, she could probably do, maybe 10 of them would be okay. And then I would be a little bit hesitant about some of the others. So while she could adapt to do some in her chair, it might be a bit too much of a faff. And if maybe I'll put my email in the link and I'll put my email here, and do feel free to email me and I'll see if I can find some resources for your mother, which might be more suitable, some Feldenkrais resources. Okay.
Really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No problem at all. That's my email there.
Lena is asking, could you say more about using your own body weight for resistance training? It's a slightly different topic, but maybe you could give us a little bit of a indication.
So I find that kind of training where you use your own body weight to be, in some ways, I feel like I get a lot of benefit out of it, and I have less propensity to injure myself than if I use weights. So that's always an interesting thing for me. So what it is, for those of you who don't know, is that there's a number of ways that you can do it. An example of a body weight exercise is a press up or a squat. Those are classic body weight. You're using the weight of your body to put some force through your muscles, where your muscles are therefore have to get stronger. There's also another kind of interesting aspect of using your own body and resistant, which is isometric training. And isometric training is a way where you actually hold yourself in a particular position and you tense the muscles and you hold them for a period of time. And that's a slightly different thing, but that can also have some very beneficial effects for strength. But yes, effectively, what you're talking about with your own body weight is literally that. You find ways to weight certain parts of you through your own body.
I was thinking we should ask you sometime to make a course for that.
About that, yeah.
Not about it, for it, doing it.
For it, yes.
I think that would be a really valuable thing, actually, to add in, just sowing a seed in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways,
a lot of people.
Yeah, the last week of Feldenfit, days 22 to 28 26. Are pretty much that type of thing, where you're using your own body weight, except that I'm not really talking about, it is actually called, I think it's called Develop True Strength or True Power.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's Develop True Power. So it is about developing your strength through your own body weight, but in a way where you're always finding the most optimal way so that you're not, again, forcing things. Because what I don't want is people to get hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Should we go to Lorna?
Where's Lorna?
She's on the screen.
Oh, hello, Lorna. Hi.
Excuse me. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I've done a fair amount of Feldenkrais, and one thing I was reminded of this morning was taking deep breaths during it and just noticing how it brought me into the parasympathetic. And it's just so deeply relaxing. But my experience has been that I do feel the difference after the lesson, but somehow I seem to revert to the old ways. And so it hasn't had lasting benefit. Can you speak to that? Do you have to really keep doing it forever and ever to keep the benefit?
You know, it's a really good question. Your question is basically about integrating, isn't it? How can you take the sessions on the floor and make them meaningful for your life? I find the things which stick from the Feldenkrais lesson That happens because I pay attention to how I'm moving in between the sessions as well as during the sessions. And as everybody here is probably aware, aware being the word, it's very difficult to be aware all of the time. In fact, it's very difficult to be aware even, you know, a small amount of the time. So for me, I think the reason that we lose it is that, you know, I get up from the lesson, the phone rings. In that moment, I answer my phone in my old habitual way. I do whatever, and already the session starts to recede. So it is a matter of developing your sensory attention so that you can be more in yourself for more of the time, whatever you're doing in life. And I haven't found a way to get away with not doing it. So yeah, commitment is pretty key. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's a lot easier when it takes 5 or 10 minutes.
And
than when
I
it
think
takes
that's actually,
an hour
that
and
is
a
part,
half.
exactly. And Lorna, that is part of why I developed the shorter sessions, because this is what I do for myself in order that I can maintain a regular practice, because I don't have time or maybe even the desire to do an hour-long Feldenkrais lesson every day. I'd probably do that once a week, but the rest of the time I do these short sessions, which, you know, and that's part of why I actually developed the whole program, so that people could fit it into their life and then develop a consistent practice. But there's no getting
that you have found that these shorter sessions ultimately have as much of a result as the hour-longs.
Yeah, it's, you know, you always get a depth out of the hour-long sessions, which you wouldn't get out of 5 to 10 minutes. But the way that I've structured the program, each lesson goes into the next. So there's a red thread running all the way through. And therefore, I do find that one session builds on the next, builds on the next, builds on the next. Yeah. So I would hope that, you know, you would carry those differences for a little bit longer through doing shorter sessions, which you could keep up with more.
Thank you. I appreciate your honesty.
Anna is asking if you could give a little summary of the key principles, Catherine.
So less is more. Focus on quality rather than quantity. Focus on the connections between the different parts of yourself and the relationships, rather than that your problem exists in one part of you. Slow down. Remember to breathe. Bring yourself fully to the session. And if you notice that you can't be fully in the session, laugh and smile and just go, there I go again. I can't be present again. Take your time at the end of a session to stay with some of the experiences that you've had on the floor. So don't just rush straight out and lose it straight away. What else? What else?
Probably less is more.
I think I said less is more. Less is more.
No, I don't mean as a principle. I mean, you don't need to give more and more principles.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. Yes. The one thing, the other one I think, which we mentioned tonight, was when you know what you're doing, you can do what you want. So when you understand how you're limiting yourself, and then you move with it in a different way, then you can do what you want.
Interesting. Yeah. It's interesting seeing, for people who are familiar with working with me, there are lots of interesting connection points, although we work very differently in a way, but there's an essence which is very connected. Doreen's asking if it can help with headaches.
It depends what the cause of the headaches is. If they're tension headaches, then yes. Yeah.
Is the live part at the same time as today? Yes, it will be. The live coaching sessions will be at the same time. We've put them at this time because we can, if it's a bit late for Europe, but it's doable. It includes America and it includes Australia. So yeah, let me just see if there are any other questions here. Oh, yes, Patricia, your horse will be very happy if you join. You can get Catherine talking about riding, and then. All right. Is it better to do the exercises at a particular time of day?
People often ask this, and the conclusion that I've drawn over 4 years of teaching this particular program is that the best time to do it is the time that you know you can commit to. So it might be that you are someone, you know, I would say that in the latter part of the day, inevitably your muscles will be more warmed up, and you will be, you'll have more synovial fluid in your joints, and the movements will feel easier. But if by 3 o'clock in the afternoon you just want to have a sandwich, then do it in the morning when you first get up. And if you're someone who finds it easy to commit to do things in the afternoon later on in the day, then do it then. But I have found that generally people, find it easiest to find a time which they know that they can put into their schedule and stick to.
Discipline. Yeah. Stella, yes, you do have access to the videos in perpetuity. And if your perpetuity and my perpetuity are different, like if my perpetuity is shorter, we'll make them downloadable in some way. Because perpetuity is an odd thing to offer. I think that's all the question. There's a question here. Do you train people in offering this?
Oh, in offering Feldenfit? I don't, and it's a good question. I say that, but what I have done is actually people have asked me if they may share the videos, the Feldenfit videos, with their students and lead them through it, and that I'm happy to do. But no, not the training, because the Feldenkrais training itself is really long. It's 4 years, and it's I think to be able to teach Feldenfit and to develop your own program, you would need at least, some sort of more formal training than I offer right now. Maybe I should. I hadn't thought about it.
Okay, I think we are done with all the questions. So thank you very much. Thanks for your interest and all your questions and your presence, and for showing up here. That's fulfilling one of the principles. And as I said, I'll send out the recording. I'll send out the link. We'd love you to join the course. I think it's going to be a great experience. I think there'll be lots of aha moments and people feeling really different and sharing that in the community, which is always really encouraging. And I think there's a lot to learn here that will complement all the other things that we're learning. So if that's something you want, then come and join us. I'm going to do it at the same time. I have done it before, but I'm going to do it again. And yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you very much, Catherine, for entering into our community this way.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. Bye, everybody. It's been such a pleasure to meet you all. As many as I could see, it was lovely. Thank you.
Okay,
have a good
thanks.
evening, morning, wherever you are.
And goodbye.
Goodbye.